price development on sports that have not been being graded forever and you name it, and things that are low pop, and the pop changes on it. And if you guys go back to our episode, I think it was March 12th, right? Back to our episode before the last Lewis Hamilton Futerra 2005 PSA 9 sold. I mean, when we were talking about it, it was like $40,000, right? We had no idea it was going to go for $312,000, right? But it was one of those cards, by the way.
I remember that episode well. When you gave you're like, everyone's buying the Lewis Hamilton play, you might as well go get his first card. I remember that episode super well.
Yeah, so I talked about that before it was even for auction. I talked about it before, and then it got for auction golden as a PSA 9. But what I was talking about is I had previously had a similar experience in soccer. In soccer F1, these cards, Marvel, the PMGs, they're all kind of in the same category where people weren't collecting those things, right? They were these tennis cards. There's this weird segment that came in over the last couple of years. With the popularity of the sports and with money coming in and people looking to move their baseball, basketball profits into something else. And what wound up happening was things are being graded for the first time. I told the story of my 58 Gazzetta, the cut card where you can either have one with Carinthia and Pele together or just Pele himself. And I bought mine, it was a PSA 4. I bought it from Golden as a Pop 1, none higher. And I'm like, all right, that's cool, man. I'll pay a premium for that, right? It's 1958. Chances are, there's not a lot of these things sitting in somebody's basement, or, they're not going to be, found, right? And it's being, it's a Pop 1. Sure, things change. Things change all the time, right? But a 65-year-old almost card, oh, maybe it shouldn't change that much. But literally the next week, the Pop report was updated. After I paid, a week after, one came out, it was a 4.5 or a 5, higher. So now mine's still a Pop 1, but it's not high as graded, right? And it was selling in Golden literally the next week. I'm like, interesting stuff, right? Well, doesn't matter whether that card was selling in Golden or not. It popped up in the Pop report. It's a lot of fun. I don't know whether it's sold in Golden or if it didn't. But this time around, so at that March 12th, I'm talking. I said, hey, guys, this just happened to me. You got to be careful in these segments of soccer. You got to be careful in the F1. You got to be careful in these segments because, things happen, right? When especially after a $312,000 sale, which we didn't know was going to happen, people are going to be beating the bushes to find these things, right? There's going to be fun stuff. And I made a prediction at the time it was going to sell for like $60,000 or $70,000. I knew it would sell for a lot. But that very soon thereafter, there would be another one that came up. I thought maybe a PSA 10. I still think that might happen. But here we are. That was March. It's now the first week of May. And there's another PSA 9. It's now Pop 2. And somebody paid $312,000. That might be a bargain because in April, one of his, the one of one sold for $900,000, right? So people are obviously spending some money on these F1 cards. The point is not to say that there's anything untoward. The point was not to say that there's any kind of scam or conspiracy theory or anything out there. The point was to say, be careful in these type of auctions, right? The newly developed asset class, the sports, the ones that people hadn't graded for a long time, and all of a sudden, the Pop 1 PSA 9 is in a recent slab. Right, it's not even an old one. It's not even something somebody graded a long time ago. Wrestling cards is another one of these, right? Where UFC cards, like that. You'll notice that these things are starting to come out of the woodwork. And what I'm trying to get at, of course, here is just weigh that into your purchases. Now, Super Trout, I think, was the person who bought that card. You want to come on and talk about it? That's great. I'm sure he doesn't mind spending $312,000. He probably thinks it's a bargain, and that's great. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I use that as an example because it's a high-price example with a lot of eyeballs that were on it. Mine was only a $10,000 Pele card, but my $10,000 card as a Pop 1, nothing higher, is probably worth $5 now, maybe $4. A month and a half after I bought it. You know what I mean? Because now it's not the highest grade. Now, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is just be aware of what's out there. Don't assume that a Pop 1 is going to stay a Pop 1 or even a Pop 2 or a Pop 10, right? Especially a card like this 2005 Futerra set. I don't know how many of them are made. They're not numbered. I don't know where they are. There might be somebody who's sitting there with 20 of them. And, for comparison's sake, guys, go take a look. Wherever you get your data from, if it's Card Ladder or Market Movers or anywhere, go take a look at what the pricing action looks like on the Michael Jordan Nike promo PSA 10. Right? See what the pricing on that is. Man, people love that card. The big card, the postcard looking thing, right? Everybody loved that card. And it was really high for a while because the pop wasn't there. And then the pop just, even though it's a almost 40-year item, all of a sudden, the pop just creeps up, and the price creeps down and creeps down. So that's the point. Shoot.
What would you say to someone if they said, well, when somebody saw the record-breaking sale of the first one, they checked their collection. They realized they had that card in a good condition. So they decided, I think, to fly into PSA and do a one-day walkthrough.
Yep. Well, what I say to them, great. I'm glad they did it. And I hope they make a ton of money doing it, right? And my post really, I think that might have been what happened here. Somebody from Australia had the card and they came in, and they graded the card and they did all that fun stuff. It's less to that person. The post is supposed to talk to the next person who's looking to buy one of these things and understand, look, you pay what you want, right? But
it's your money.
Chances are there's the possibility, especially in these asset classes, that there's going to be that person. The point is, I have no problem with the person who came in and graded it. I have no problem that it was selling. The point is that back in March, I wanted to make sure that we were telling the person who was going to buy that card that this is a likelihood, not just a possibility, a likelihood. And it came to be 2 months later. And chances are there will be more. There was so that card sold for $312. The very next golden auction, there was an 8, and now there's a 9. So are there going to be one of these in every golden auction now? Or are they going to be all over the place? Are these going to be something that pops up? And is it going to be the same for soccer cards? Is it going to be the same for all of these other asset classes? Look at what happened with the Marvel PMGs. Like, just take a look at the chart on those things. They're selling for 90% less than where they were, because when they first were sold, they were sold as Pop 1, Pop 2, nothing higher. Then all of a sudden, people found them, graded them, and they weren't as rare as folks thought they were. And those were numbered cards. You know what I mean? So something like this, it's just preach a little bit of caution. And guys, let me just, just to balance that out, this is not just the soccer or F1 rant or anything like that. This can happen everywhere. If you listen to our collectible fractional reports on weekends, I said the word black swamp find more times than Andrew has ever wanted to hear in his life. He can die a happy man never hearing black swamp ever again, right? But that's an example of it happening.
I'm going to name my next company Black Swamp.
The Black Swamp. So, but that's an example
of it happening. Of company names.
It happened in the vintage world. High-end, 100-year-old cards, found in an attic in mint condition, 9s and 10s. And it just destroys the value of these things, because the pop, where some of these cards are Pop 1, 2, whatever it is, now all of a sudden you got Pop 6 or Pop 8, and the people who bought them. So it's not just it's not just this, but the likelihood of something like that happening again 100 years later, as opposed to a more modern segment, a soccer card, an F1 card, that kind of stuff, it's a little more likely that that's going to happen now, especially when you layer in the fact that baseball cards have been collected for 150 years and soccer and motorsport cards just have not. So that's the point of it, guys. I just wanted to make sure, because we got some great comments. I love putting things out there, especially when it shows how right I was, because I like being right. It doesn't happen that often, but I like the commentary.
You're right, because you've experienced that.
Yeah, it happened to me. Exactly right. So we like to share our own experiences with people.
What I took when I read your post, because we don't always talk about everything that each other posts. Actually, most of the time we don't. It was, don't just look at today's pop. You look at today's pop, have a filter to understand what card this is. Is it a numbered card or a base card? Look at recent sales and realize, what will the pop look like in the future? And take that into consideration when you're buying.
Right.
What could it look like, and what the probability would look like?
Yep.
That's what I thought, because a Pop 1 today on a card that just hit a record sale in a new market might not be a Pop 1 in 12 months. It might be a Pop 7 in 12 months with 2 PSA 10s, 7 PSA 9s, and 44 PSA 8s.
100% accurate.